Hi everybody, welcome to Adobe Live on Behance.net. My name is Michael Jarrett. I'm here with Eunice Wu, who's joining us from Canada. This is day 3 of our stream, so the final stream we'll be doing this week. And we've been focusing on Photoshop, creative compositing. We've made a ton of really amazing images, so we hope you're ready to get started. We'll be diving deep in just a minute. A couple of items before we get started. Today we'll be doing a chat and win. So in 30 minutes, we will select a random winner who's been participating in our chat, and that winner will get some free stickers from Sticker Mule. And as you can tell, we're big fans of stickers around here. Half of us are. And so stick around for that in 30 minutes. And then later in the stream, at an hour and a half in, we will be doing portfolio reviews. So this is a really, really great opportunity to get your work kind of shown on stream. We'll talk about your work, maybe offer some constructive feedback, take a look at your portfolio, and you might be able to get a few new followers. And speaking of followers, I'm here with Eunice, whose Instagram is Edit My Reality. So if you want to go ahead and give her a follow, we'll pull that up here and take a look at some of her work, because there's some really amazing Photoshop composite work, and it goes really, really deep. So would you like to kind of give everybody, if they're new here, an intro to who you are and what you do?
Okay, sure. So my name is Eunice. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and I started doing Photoshop around 3 years ago. I learned by kind of playing with the program because I tried to look at YouTube tutorials, but I found them very confusing. So I kind of learned by my own ways, and through that, I was able to work with a lot of different clients, specifically through a company in New York, and we do a lot of brand management and social media management for different companies and influencers. And through that, I was able to gain a lot of experience, and now I'm here.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I know that some people probably heard it yesterday, but I think it's still kind of an interesting thing, maybe for those who are joining us for the first time. This is actually not what you're studying in school.
No.
This is kind of half of your life, and the other half is devoted to what right now?
The other half, I'm studying microbiology at UBC, and this year I applied to the Doctor of Pharmacy program, so hopefully I get in. And I joke around
Fingers crossed.
I joke around with my friends that I like to do graphic design and marketing, but I do pharmacy to appease my very Asian parents.
Yes, and your mom's joining us in the room watching the stream, which we're very lucky to have. So welcome back if you've been joining us for the past couple streams this week. If you're new, welcome here. You can always go and rewatch some of the streams from this week to see some of the work that Eunice has been working on. But I know today we're actually going to dive into the image you were working on yesterday. We got to a pretty far point in the image, but there were still a couple of edits, so I think we'll spend some time doing that. But would you like to walk people through where we arrived yesterday and kind of where the whole project started?
Okay, sure. So this is where we left off yesterday, and it all started with, let me unhide some layers.
There's a lot of layers here. It looks like a really nice, tightly controlled one image, but I think there are probably at least 6 or 7 or 8 different images going into this at this point.
So this was the starting image yesterday, and from there we were adding a lot of water layers to kind of make that water in a teacup kind of scene. And there's just a lot of layers, and we got to a point where we were adding a boat and a parasailer, I believe.
Yeah, and a few options that maybe we hadn't quite figured out which one was going to work best. Creative compositing is always about, finding the right source images, getting the right perspective, color, and lighting. And as you can see, in just an hour and a half, we've from yesterday's stream, we were able to get to a really compelling, realistic, fun portrait. So what's next for this image, do you think?
We left off choosing between 2 parasailers. It was the yellow and the red, and I think I'm going to stick with the red one just because I think the shape of it fits better, and also it already has a wire going the right angle of the boat. So I'm going to get rid of the yellow, and we're going to flip over the parasailer. Okay. And I think I'm going to place him somewhat in the cup. So he's pretty close by to the boat. Okay. And when we were selecting and to get rid of the background for the parasailer, we actually went to select and color range. And when we did that, we got rid of some of the white parts of the sail. So we're gonna put that in with the brush and mask tool.
And so what Eunice is doing, excuse me, right now is actually painting directly onto the layer mask. So it's not that the image has, these parts of the image, they've not been deleted, they've simply been hidden. And what she's doing right now is just revealing the parts that were hidden that we still need to see in this image. And this is a good reminder too, as Eunice is working in Photoshop, we want to know your questions about her technique, maybe about her process. It can be about Photoshop, what you're seeing, and all questions are valid. Whether it's a beginner question or a more advanced question, we will do our best to answer all of them. So please ask us in the chat what's going on, especially if you're joining us for the first time. I think we have a couple questions already that I'll just put in a note and we can address it over time. Also curious for the chat what the weather is like where you are right now, because it's very rainy outside in San Francisco where we are today. So hopefully somebody's getting some sun, but let us know what kind of day you're having.
Okay, so I colored in the rest of the parasailer, but now when we were getting rid of the background, you can kind of see the remains of the wires and the ropes, but we want to make that more prominent in the image. And we also need to connect the rope that's connecting the parasailer to the boat, so he's not just flying in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And do you think that's a part of the original image, or are you going to actually go in and draw?
I find it easier to go in and draw, so I'm going to create a new layer and then take the same brush tool, but I'm going to turn the hardness up a bit, but not so it's completely at 100%.
Nice.
Okay. And from here, I just draw a line and hope for the best.
Yeah, can always kind of redo and transform things.
And since it's too thick right now, I'm just going to thin it out a little bit until we have a good, strong line.
Are you ready for a weather report while you do that?
Sure, yes.
It is currently rainy in Chicago. It's a bit cloudy in Edmonton. I believe Edmonton is in Alberta, right?
Yes, it's nearby.
Nearby.
We call it Deadmonton.
Deadmonton.
Because there's nothing that goes on there.
Oh. Stephen Pazlowski can maybe tell us what he likes to do in Edmonton. Lindsay Palmer says it's over 90 degrees. It's the first day over 90 degrees, which is pretty hot. I'm from Texas and that's hot. Curious where you are, Lindsay. And a couple of people in the San Francisco Bay Area, and everybody's getting rain. In Sacramento, Bay Area, rain in Southern California, raining in the Bay Area. Everyone's in Chicago or LA. Porto Alegre. I kind of don't know where that is. It sounds like Spain or Portugal, maybe down Southern America, but it's cloudy there. Sunny and warm in Iowa. And Lindsay is outside of Kansas City. Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas? All right, and that's today's weather report.
Okay, so I have one line over here, but I can actually reuse this for every other line. So I'm just gonna duplicate it with Command J and hide the current layer. And then I can reshape this down. Oh no, actually I'm not gonna reshape it. I'm going to turn the angle. So I'm going over the previous line that I cut out from the background. So I'm kind of following the previous image as a guide. Okay. I'm gonna duplicate it again and then do the same thing for the next line. And then duplicate again. And a few more times. Oh, it's not duplicating.
I have that
There
happen
we
to me
go.
frequently where you're like, keep going, and then you have to go back a couple steps.
Okay.
Molly McCarthy is asking, what color did you make the line?
I chose I was already selected on the background color from when I went to select color range. So it's the previous color, so it should be the same color as the shadow of the parasail.
Nice. So Stephen has a report from Edmonton. He says escape rooms are pretty fun and the river valley is nice to walk in the summer, which does sound really nice. Anywhere there's a river.
Okay. So I'm going to take all the layers I put for the ropes and then I'm going to just merge them so it's easier to work with. And then I'm going to cut out all the bottom parts of the rope and just press delete. And the same goes for the top. Okay. So now the only thing we have left is the rope connecting the parasailer to the boat. And I have the previous layer that I hid, and I can use this rope to connect them.
And the cool part about this is you can sort of like kind of create your own, you know, rework the image, get the angle just right for what you need here.
And the angle right here is a little bit hard to work with, and it's not really the right curve, so I'm going to use Puppet Warp and just hold the two sides. Actually, I can drag this over to, where do you connect a parasail?
To the back of the boat.
The back of the boat
Yeah,
is
there's
here.
generally like
Okay.
a platform on the back that you stand on, and that's where you kind of get taken up from.
Okay, we'll put it there then. And then have them right there. And give the rope a little bit of a curve. Okay.
Nice.
And you can't really see it right now, so I'm going to have to brighten it up a bit. And so that means I'm going to have to make all of the ropes this color. So I'm going to merge all the rope layers, and then apply a brightness mask onto it.
And you clipped that brightness adjustment just to the layer below
Just
it,
to
and that
those.
layer below it has all the ropes on it. So that's why it briefly overexposed the whole image, but then got targeted to those ropes.
So now to address the question before of what color I made the ropes, it doesn't really matter as long as it's not a grayscale color, because if it is, then it's really hard to work with the brightness and contrast.
Right.
So I think it is bright enough, but now I'm going to go back to the parasail layer because I was using the ropes as a guide before, but now I can see that it's showing a little bit on the sides. So I'm just going to get rid of those in the mask.
Nice precision lasso tool right there to do some cleanup work. Betty says, I didn't know you could parasail behind a sailboat, especially with the sails up, and that might not be true. We don't. Generally they might be motorboats, but this is fantasy, you know, this is Photoshop. Anything is real.
Okay, I think I'm done with the parasailer, but now I'm going to add a lot of clouds and birds because I had a phase when I started out in Photoshop where every single photo, it didn't matter what it was, I had to add birds. For some reason, it just made it better.
It's like a signature mark, you know?
Yes.
All artists have those.
So I'm going to go into my asset folder that I talked about yesterday, and I'm going to go to, so in my folder I organize it in this way. So the ones with regular names have a background, but the ones with a little dash in front are transparent.
Oh, and you've done that work before, or you've online, it came already as a transparent PNG image.
So I'm just going to select a few and see if they look good or not. You can barely see it, but they're little puffs. And I think I like this one. And a few of these, if you're familiar with my work, you can recognize the exact same clouds in every single photo. Okay.
Oh, it's so fun, just like that even. It's kind of magical.
Oh, that's
So
a lot of clouds.
a couple questions while you're doing that. Keita Jones has asked a couple questions. He's asking if you critique aspiring composite artists' work, and
Oh, we're doing that today.
we'll do it today. Yeah, portfolio review. Good reminder to submit your portfolio in the submission tab, and we might get to critique some work today. And he also asks, when do you feel that you got good at compositing? Like, how long did it take from just being an absolute beginner to starting to feel like something that you could kind of own as your own?
I think I don't really have an answer for that, because when I started out and I won that Google Pixel contest, I thought I was getting really good. But then at this point right now, if I look back then to my photos at that time, I'm thinking, wow, it was actually really bad.
So you keep getting better.
Yes.
It's sort of a moving target,
Yeah.
really.
So you don't really want to settle on a certain skill level, because there's always room to improve.
Did you ever have a point where you were sort of discouraged at like the pace of progress or something? I know often, especially with Photoshop, it can be a very daunting task to get in and feel like you have a handle on things. But I imagine that's something you just kind of have to work through and keep trying, right?
Yeah, I think when I was most discouraged was when my growth stopped. My growth was at a plateau, and I saw that other people who started later than me were getting really high up there in the 100,000s and getting all these brand deals. And I think at that point I felt really discouraged because people were going faster than me, so I felt like my work wasn't getting good enough. But I feel like you shouldn't really compare your level of success to other people's, as long as you're satisfied with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not always just a matter of skill level. That's certainly a big part of it, but often, you know, some people get lucky breaks, and you can't ever sort of compare your lucky break with their lucky break, things like that.
So I have all my clouds sized down, and I'm going to drag those layers, all of them, under the parasail. And then I'm just going to start arranging.
Nice. Anna Brackett says, hello, Eunice and Michael. Hi, Anna. Let us know where you're from. We did a weather report earlier, so you have to let us know what the weather is like where you currently are. And Fanny Franco is asking, how did you make those clouds transparent?
For these ones, a few of them I got off online, because when you Google search something, you can go into settings and then change the color to transparent, and it comes up with PNG images, which is really helpful. But otherwise, I take a sky image and I just select color range, get rid of the blues, and then I keep the whites.
Nice. Yeah, and there's a variety of brush packs out there, some pretty high quality cloud brushes, which can be another way to generate some of the images that you're seeing here, and almost actually paint with them, which can be kind of a fun process. Lots of great resources out there. Thomas Viana is asking how long it usually takes you to finish a composite for a client.
For a client,
I guess you have to factor in like feedback and things like that.
I don't do a lot of composite work for clients. I mainly do photo touch-ups and graphics, but in the rare instances that I did do composites, they took around the same time, around 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. I mean, but you mentioned it, I think 2 days ago. You said when you get started on something, it's just something that you just keep going on until it feels complete or mostly complete.
I think the only client I've done composites for is Mari Takadashi from Smosh Games, and those took 4 to 8 hours for each.
All right.
Yeah, depending on how complicated the background is and how hard it is to isolate the object from the background.
Is that work online anywhere?
It is on her Instagram, but it was a long time ago, so you'd have to scroll down a lot, and she posts a lot too.
Is it Takahashi or Takadashi?
If you go on Instagram, her handle is Atomic Mari. Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to scroll all the way down.
I will. What am I looking for? What kind of image?
It's really hard to explain because they're all composites.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but it's a long way down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will you kind of know the territory when you see it?
Not really.
No.
I actually can't find them. Yeah. I actually can't find these.
Okay. Well, we might have to find those later or pull them
Okay.
up, but it'd be interesting to see that work. All right, and we have our weather report from Anna Brackett, who's in Aspen, Colorado, beautiful part of the country. It's an odd mix of warm and cloudy, and confused when it comes to weather. That's true of a lot of places.
So I have my main cloud layer, and I think I like this one as a secondary. So I'm gonna turn this opacity to 50, and then the main layer to around 80, so it's not too opaque. I'm gonna drag the secondary layer down a little bit, and maybe turn that to 60 actually.
And do you think that you will end up using most of the clouds that you brought in? I saw you brought in about like 5 or 6 different layers. Do you think you'll use them all?
Deleted a few already. I like these two, and then I'm going to use this one as a little haze on top of the water. And then this one, I don't know what it is. I probably don't need that one. I can get rid of that. And then this one is just a little haze around the sides.
Nice.
I'm going to brighten this one too because it's a little gray. And then turn the opacity down as well to around 60. Let's do 80.
It's a nice and subtle addition there.
But I'm also going to blur these a little bit. So filter, blur, and Gaussian blur, probably around a 5. Oh, maybe less. Around a 3 would be good. Okay. And then I have my main cloud layer, which is the brightest one, and then I'm also going to blur that to around a 3. Okay, and then this is the haze, and that will be the same. Okay, so now we have clouds, and I also want to add some birds.
Signature move.
They're a little bit of a hit and miss, so I am going to have to try. And I also have doves.
Oh, specifically doves. Do you have a birds folder that's not doves?
Yes, I do.
All right.
They're right here. Lots of birds. But these are all silhouettes, I believe. Actually, some of them aren't. You can kind of recognize these are the ones I used for my other photo. The first teacup photo.
Oh, yeah.
So I reuse a lot of my assets. Okay. I think I might use the exact same ones or doves. So these look good.
Jaybirds.
Yes.
Fanny's asking if you print your composites. Do you ever do anything like that, Society 6?
I have.
Yeah.
I'm currently setting up my shop still because I'm debating between Society 6 and Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm still in the process of that. Oh, yesterday I actually saw someone take one of my photos and sell it on Society 6 for $45.
That's like
That
not very
me.
cool though, right?
No.
Because it was your photo.
Yeah.
So how do you approach that situation? Did you have to reach out, right?
They already took it down. I just saw it still on Google, so I hope no one bought it.
Oh, I see.
Because it's probably very low quality.
That should be, it should be your $45.
Yes. Yeah, and I also had another company. I have a few companies reaching out to me asking to sell my photos. So there was Wall Tones who they offer either commission-wise or per image license. Yeah, but I feel like I should be selling those on my own because I kind of want control over that.
Right.
So I'm just changing the hue of the birds to kind of match the background more.
We've got a lot of people with ideas about birds. Doves are a good call. I love the idea of birds. Should be seagulls or other seabirds. Are they blue jays? And then both Felipe and Anna are saying that they love your work and the composite is looking so cool.
I'm just deleting the ones that are sitting right now because it doesn't really make sense for them to be around.
Unless they're perched.
Actually, I will have one on the cup.
Nice.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Ileana, did you make the photo or did you find it?
Which one?
I don't. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the one that got stolen?
Oh, I think she was asking about this composite.
This composite.
Sort of a mix, right?
Mix, yeah.
We
found the photos online, and nowadays with compositing, a lot of people, it's really hard to come up with a really original idea because everything has been done before. Like, I did a reflection of a girl and her parents in the reflection, and I didn't realize that someone else already did it.
Oh.
So it's really hard to come up with something completely new because I made this cup photo 3-4 years ago, and everyone has been doing cup photos, but right now, not a lot of people are doing it, so I'm just making this again.
Yeah, and it's always, I imagine, good and kind of fun to see like how your process has improved and how you solve challenges now that you've, had a lot more experience since the original time.
So I'm just going to move each of these birds over individually. So I'm going to start with the one perched on top of the cup. I think that looks really cute right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to have some more flying.
And just a reminder, we're going to do Chat and Win in 4 minutes. So for those of you just joining us, it's a really great opportunity to potentially win some free stickers. And all you have to do is participate in the chat on behance.net. So make sure you get those fingers warmed up, ask us a burning question, say hello to your neighbor, say something nice, and you might be the winner of 100 free stickers. We'll do that in about 3.5 minutes.
How many birds should I add?
What's your favorite number? That's under 10.
I don't know.
Really? I think 5 birds.
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no. Last one. Maybe one more.
We can ask chat, how many birds do you think we should add? She should add. I don't know how we're gonna make a selection. I'm sure everybody's gonna have a different idea, but
We'll take the mean number.
yeah, you can do that math. I'll have to open up an Excel spreadsheet and get it all worked out. A good question, how do you know when you've added enough elements to a composite? What is too little, what is too much? Oh, you don't?
I don't know.
Okay.
Some of my photos are just 2 photos laid on top of each other, and then other ones can be 20.
Wow, yeah.
Okay. So I was going to add this one, but it looks a little similar to this. I'm going to have to flip this one over then.
So it looks like there's a lot of 7s. Someone suggested 100 birds.
Yes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll add one more for 7.
All right, 7 is the winner.
Actually, I like this one better.
Hello, Huxel and Ted from the East Bay. Welcome to the chat.
Okay, and I can get rid of these. These are all dead.
Oh, 5 birds.
Okay, and then when I was doing the birds, I noticed some of them are a little more blue and others are a little more purple. So I'm going to adjust those a bit by masking.
So applying a hue and saturation adjustment layer.
And then just only applying it to these birds.
That's
Also,
pretty inventive, yeah, nice.
my hardness is still at right there. I like to work with my hardness at 0% because if it's a soft brush, everything looks more blended.
Mm-hmm. Richard Lindley is back. I think he's still asking about the nuclear submarine.
Right.
He says,
Oh,
where's my battleship?
I actually had that ready for you. It's right here.
Nice. All right. Let's
I didn't forget
make it
about
in.
you.
Is it going to happen?
Yes.
All right, nice.
Okay.
Jeffrey Aldrich asked about printing or digital, and I believe most of your work probably remains digital,
Yeah.
but you're working on opening up a shop to sell some prints, which will be really awesome. All right, we're gonna take a very, very short break to go do the chat and win section. So right now, go ahead and blow up chat with your comments, say hello, say something nice, tell us your favorite color, and we'll be right back to announce the winner of today's chat and win. All right, we are back from our short break. We're really excited to see chat. It's about to blow up with people's favorite colors. I keep seeing people say we need to add dolphins, so that's kind of cool. And in just a minute, right here, there will be a name that's resolving out of the ether, and that will be today's winner. So until it comes up, we're just gonna read out your favorite colors. Red, chartreuse, blue, blue, poo, gold,
Oh.
gray, black, red, green. That's a new one. Double green. Rainbows colors, rose gold, white, blue, fun composite, shout out to you. Blue, red, purple, sharks, pew pew, loop, purple, black, popcorn. And Ashish Verma is today's lucky winner, so everybody congratulate Ashish. We're gonna send you a message and give you some details about how you can get 100 free stickers, but everybody sort of wins today because we've got a link for you. And if you go to stickermule.com/Adobe Live 19, you can get your very own stickers for just $1. So that's an awesome deal for everybody in chat. Make sure to do that. We want to know that your laptops eventually will look something similar to this, especially if they look like this right now. Okay, we are back in the composite. Have we saved today?
No, we have not.
We have not saved. I love it. I love calling it out.
This is the third day in a row.
We did get a nuclear submarine partially
Yes.
added. So what are you doing here?
I'm just adding a little bit more of the water around it before I get rid of the nuclear submarine.
Nice. Oh, before you get rid of it.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's going to make a brief appearance before it submerges
Okay.
itself to
Just
appear
a
later in
little
another
brighter.
cup.
And hue and saturation up. Okay. I can't seem to get the right color with hue and saturation, so I'm going to color balance that.
So hue and saturation, kind of like a macro, bigger level adjustment, but if you can't get the right result there, you're going to get much more targeted, right?
And he can go right behind the boat.
So just chasing it.
Yes.
It's pretty terrifying.
I'll leave him in there for now. I'm going to go back to my bird. Someone said they want a bird outside of the clouds, so I will move this one out. And this one up a little bit. Okay.
How do you feel? Is it looking good?
This one isn't that visible against the blue background, so I'm going to move him more into the clouds. So it's really the placement and to make sure everything is visible.
Right, at this point it's sort of just a compositional arrangement game.
Like what Terry Lee was talking about, composition is a really big part of it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think that looks good. Now we have to fix the background because yesterday when we were extending the background, it got a little weird. But first I'm going to crop it down because it is a little bit high. So I want the middle of the mug to be in the middle. So that seems like a good crop. Okay, and we're going to go down to the background and try to content aware this line right there.
Nice. We have a suggestion that you might like to add ice cubes with penguins near the spoon. Someone might know that you really like penguins.
Oh, I actually don't know that person. Okay. So it's not really working out, and there's still that weird line. I'm gonna fix this one first. But then I think I'm gonna have to use patch tool to fix this. And if that doesn't work, then I'll bring in a different background layer.
Nice. That's always an option.
So I'm gonna use patch tool and select the weird area that I want to fix. Just gonna drag this over. Didn't really help. It's not really helping. So we're gonna have to find a new background layer. So I'm just gonna search up on Google blue wallpaper.
Nice.
That texture looks relatively similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your plan is to actually replace the entire background to sort of simulate the surface, or just to go at the top?
Just at the top, because I don't want that weird layer. Oh, I see. There's another reason why this is showing up. It's because the mug, I duplicated the mug layer because I wanted the outline to be there. So it might actually be easier to extend this layer instead. So I'm going to try that.
See you later, Lucia, who has to go. Thank you for watching.
And the same problem.
Oh, I see. So you were trying the content-aware fill on another cup layer, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have to put this one in. And the color is a little too bright, so I'm going to turn it down and a little lighter.
Clarence is asking how to make lasso lines go away. So when you have a selection, whether you've made the selection with the lasso tool or the marquee tool or any other selection method, if you want to make those lines go away, you can press Command or Control D. That will deselect. That's the keyboard shortcut. You can also find it in the Select menu at the top and select Deselect. Thank you, Stephen, for the insight as well, the keyboard shortcut. So you're just kind of color matching right now and doing a really pretty good job with something you found pretty quickly on Google, which is nice.
Okay. It looks pretty similar, so now I'm just going to mask the bottom so it blends better. And to do that, I'm going to make the brush tool really big and just wipe away the line. I'm going to zoom out a little bit too, to get in there. I'm unlinking the background image because there is a little bit of a harsher line down there, and just dragging the image down. Okay. I think that looks good.
Nice, that was a pretty good little edit.
And I think I am done.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I just need to get rid of the nuclear submarine.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, nuclear submarine. It just went underneath the water.
Yes.
Yeah, this is looking good. At this point in a project, would you be doing kind of overall lighting adjustments at this point?
Right now I'm doing overall adjustments. I also want to make the parasailer the same color as the boat because it just looks nicer if they match together.
Yeah, and that orange will be a nice contrast to the mostly blue scene.
Okay, and I am done.
Nice.
Okay. No time for the next photo?
Yeah. So what's next?
Okay, I'm just going to export this first.
Yeah, we're going to save this image. And you might be able to see this on Eunice's Instagram at some point in the near future. Check it out at Edit My Reality. And this is a good time to remind everybody that in 50 minutes, 50 minutes, we'll be doing portfolio reviews. So you have a chance to submit your Behance portfolio. We'll take a look at 2 of them in a little under an hour, and we'll give you feedback on your work and on your presentation. And it will also be a really good opportunity for everyone in the chat to see your work. So if that sounds appealing to you, please visit the portfolio review tab and submit your portfolio for consideration.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to an image I already did before. And a few of you will recognize it just based on this image.
It's already a very fantastic image. Somebody put some Christmas lights in a jar and tossed it to sea, and it washed up somewhere else.
Yeah. I think the first thing I'm going to do is touch up the foreground actually, because these dark spots are a little distracting.
Kind of right here, getting in it. Nice. And so content aware is super crazy. That's sort of one of those tools that's like the magic part of Photoshop, right? Where you click a button and something disappears. And it's doing a really, really good job.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I want to put in planets in this photo. And to do that, I need to make sure the background is a little darker first, so things will stand out. And I'm going to import all the planets.
That was easy. And where did you find a resource like this?
This one I pulled from my asset folder again because I used to use planets a lot. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah. I have different sets of planets actually.
Yeah, and these come from a variety of sources, I imagine, but you've been collecting over the past couple years a bunch of photos and other assets that you know you use frequently and can very quickly use to generate ideas, right?
So the ones without a background right now are the ones I've already used. So I removed the background and I saved a PNG layer before I continue with my edit, so I can use them in the future. So I don't always have to be cropping them out.
Yeah, and the good news about planets, with the exception of Saturn, is that you can just use like a circular marquee tool and just cut the background out pretty easily.
Okay, so I'm going to first separate all of these planets into different layers so it's easier to work with. So I'm just going to layer via cut. Is that Mercury or Venus?
That looks like Venus to me, but it'd be hard to... I sort of remember Venus being kind of a yellowish planet, gaseous.
E. This is the only time I will label my masks.
All right.
I'm going to label my layers.
It's sort of like a
Yes.
astronomy quiz. If you're in chat right now, let us know your favorite planet. It doesn't have to be part of this solar system. It does have to be part of this universe. And if you know a really interesting planetary fact, we'd also like to know that. Also, not to put too much pressure, but if anybody knows any space puns, we'd like to hear those jokes too. So really anything goes. Paco getting some shout outs in the chat. Apparently your photos have been viewed. And Paco does take some amazing photos. Lots of California landscapes and chill lapses, which is a cool term he invented. So check out his work.
Okay, so I have everything in different layers and I'm just gonna try to work on composition. But first, I kind of want the planets to be spilling out of the jar. So I'm going to have to open up this jar somehow.
Oh. How are you gonna do it?
So glass is very hard to work with. So, but the good thing is on this one, the bottom of the jar has that ridge and it's already a little dark. And that kind of resembles what the edge of broken glass looks like. And I actually have a reference photo that I can use in my photo, but I can just base it off of it and draw my own line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. It's like a broken window or something.
So the edges of broken glass are always a little darker, and it's a good thing that this rim has that dark edge. So we're going to duplicate the base layer, and then I'm going to go to filter and liquify. And then I'm going to zoom in, and I kind of want the broken glass, the broken edge to go to the right a little bit, and then come back down. So I'm just going to drag the ridge over. Like that.
Nice, so it kind of appears as the jagged edge, and then you'll...
Now I just go in with the lasso tool, and I'm going to make a straight... I'm going to try to make straight edges, but it's going to be very clear cut. Just delete.
Nice, very cool, inventive technique here.
And this is a little too it should look a little more like glass once I add the burn tool, because there are still some brighter edges, so I'm just going to darken it a little bit. Or even go to brightness and contrast and apply that layer down. I'm going to turn the brightness down and invert it, and then apply this over here.
So basically make a really, really noticeable effect, and now you're just going to sort of tell Photoshop what part of the layer you want that effect to be visible on, which is a really cool way to achieve this darkened edge effect. All right, we have two pretty good space jokes already. I want to make sure I say it correctly. Oh, I don't know where the question went, but it was like, how do you put a space baby to sleep or an astronaut baby to sleep? Rocket. Eye rolls all around. Okay. How about another one? Which hot drinks do space people like? Gravity. Ooh, I like this one. I love the way Earth rotates. It really makes my day. It's kind of a little deeper layer right there, you know? That was a good one, Nishant. That's my favorite so far. And Paco's got one. How do you organize a space party?
You plan it.
Oh, good. How'd you know
See
that
it right
answer?
Okay, so you can see the edge that I made just then and the previous edge. And I actually don't need to get rid of that rim layer because I can cover it with the planets. So I think I want to put Saturn somewhere in there. Oh, I'm going to move all the planets in between the two base layers. But the problem is I put a brightness and contrast layer before that, so everything is a little darker. So I'm just going to duplicate it and then apply it to both layers. So I'm just going to merge that down onto the base layer and merge the same one onto the second base layer that I made. I'm just going to move the second layer above all the planets as well. And now we have Saturn inside. Now the problem is everything inside the jar is a little hidden, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to go back to the layer I created, and I just want this little edge right there. Or I'll take the jar
I always find this fun that you're doing this all with the trackpad right now.
I'm going to select inverse and delete everything. And now I just have the jar part, and I'm going to turn the opacity down to 50. So it'll be relatively clear, but not completely transparent. And now you can see the planet inside.
Nice. That's a fun little, almost like a magic trick right there.
Yes. So Saturn is a little too big right now. And I'm going to adjust Saturn with all the other planets so everything is proportional. I'm just going to turn that down a little bit. And I think that's a good size for a planet inside.
Where did the idea for this photo come from? Just your imagination?
Yeah, I saw the picture of the jar, and then I saw the lights inside, and instantly I thought of the sun, because I like to put moons and suns in my photos a lot, but then I realized I want something to be spilling out, and the first thing I thought of was planets.
Cool.
So I'm going to tilt Saturn on its rings. And probably Uranus down here. put earth out here.
Nice. If anybody has questions for Eunice during the course of this composite, please ask us in the chat. We'll try our best to get to it.
I think the jar is a little too dark, so I'm actually going to turn that opacity to around 30. Oh, maybe 40. Because we want the planets to be visible, but also we want to maintain that transparency.
Thanks for submitting your portfolio, Huxel. Hopefully everybody else can follow your lead and submit their portfolio today. This is a lot of like fine-tune adjusting.
Yes.
But you seem to be striking kind of a nice balance spilling out here.
Hopefully it will turn out well. Because the composition is the most important thing with these images. Is you can have two nice objects in a photo and a really nice base, but the placement is what matters the most.
Yep, so it's important to kind of get it right.
Put them right on the bubbles.
And it's great because you don't need the sun in this because it's already in the photo.
Yes.
In the background.
Okay, so that looks like a decent composition. Yeah. And now, one thing that I didn't realize when I made this photo a few years ago was that the shadowing on the planets that I'm using are on the right side, and the fairy lights are actually shining from the right side as well. So I need to fix the shadowing on all the planets.
Do you think you'll just flip them horizontal? I mean, flip them across?
There is still more brightness on this side, so I was a little bit correct, but the planets inside the jar should not have that shadow, so I think I'll just adjust those ones. I think that's Uranus.
Hi Marquise, welcome to the chat. And Marshall Brannon, who says, I love Adobe, so that's cool. I love Adobe too. And Paco loves Adobe. Do you love Adobe?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here.
That was a nice, confident yes.
What if I said no?
Uh,
Kicked out.
I mean, Adobe's a brand, everyone's got an opinion, but it's a really great place, a lot of great tools. It's a good place to work, so everyone's got to love Photoshop a little bit.
Okay, so I made 2 layers of Mars, and I'm just erasing the darker side. I think I'm going to turn it a little bit so you can't really tell that it's the same piece of Mars. And this is just to cover the dark shadow that we had there. I still want a little bit of shadowing, so I'll keep that as is. I'm going to merge the 2 layers of Mars and then rename it as well. And then I think the last one inside the jar is Jupiter and Venus. So I'm going to do the same thing. I made a copy of Venus. I'm going to transform and flip horizontal. And I'm just going to erase the shadow side.
Nice. That's a really creative idea.
And then same with Jupiter. Actually, no, that shadowing makes sense on Jupiter. I think I'm going to keep Jupiter as is. I'm going to delete the first layer.
And that shadow makes sense because there's a planet
there's
resting
planets around
against it, so they would add a shadow there.
And now that reminds me that Mars should have that as well because it's touching, kind of touching the planets at the bottom. So it should be a little darker right there.
Bye, Ileana. Thank you for watching. Nahid is asking, why don't you work with smart objects? Do you work with smart objects?
Not really.
No.
I always rasterize smart objects.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
So you're just like, you commit to things.
Yeah.
But it's a good good question, Nahid, because smart objects are a really, really great way to make non-destructive edits. You can sort of make a whole bunch of layers and do a bunch of edits and then collapse those into a single smart object, so you can always go back and rework things if you want. But yeah, you're kind of committing to things, which is really also kind of enjoyable to watch.
So I grouped the planets all together, and I'm going to apply brightness and contrast and just adjust them so they fit in better with the image. And just upping the contrast there really makes a difference.
Yeah, kind of help match the tonal quality.
Okay. I'm also going to work on the jar now because I temporarily put the opacity at 40 so I can kind of see what's inside. But I do want to preserve that line that we made before, so I'm going to turn the opacity back to 100. And I'm going to layer mask it. And with a brush, add opacity probably around 20 or 30. I'm going to start trying to show the planets inside.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you can sort of just target it to those specifically.
I'm going to make this brush smaller against the edge of the glass.
Hi Cars, welcome to the chat. I like Huxel's response. He says, my favorite planet is Earth because here I can breathe and not die from lava rain. Which is a very true point, at least for the time being. No lava rain yet. So just sort of switching back and forth between white and black and dialing that in.
I think that's a good opacity for now. Maybe a little bit more at the top. Okay. Yeah. So I think there's 2 things that I want to get done, and one of them is a little glow on the planets, and another is the shadow on the water. So I think I'm going to do the shadow first.
Nice.
So since the planets aren't on the same plane, like the Earth is lower than Saturn, I can't flip the entire layer over, but I can duplicate this group and then flip the group over and then just move each individual one. Okay. So now I can go in to the second group and move. Let's do Mercury first. This one under here. Earth.
I'm just gonna like block it with my head right here.
Venus. There isn't really a Venus shadow, is there? Oh, it's down here. And then Saturn. Okay, so I have everything relatively placed, and I want to move the shadow layer under the actual planets. I should probably label these planets.
Real planets and then
Reflection planets. Okay, and I'm going to turn this group down to around, let's go with 50 for now, or maybe a little less. Yeah, and then I think I'm going to keep these all together as well, so I'm going to merge this group. Okay, so I have all the reflections in one layer, and now I'm going to filter and blur and Gaussian blur.
And already the effect is really kind of nice. Helps get, I don't know, it's one of those things that you do and it takes you from 0 to like 75 and you're almost there.
So I want to see, in comparison to the jar is pretty clear in the reflection, so I shouldn't be blurring it too much. Maybe around a 5.
And that's kind of a good point. There are context clues in the original image that can help you make some of these decisions. And that's one of them, for example. You can also obviously determine colors and where the light source is from the original photo, and you kind of replicate that in the things that you do.
So I can also see from the original photo that the reflection in the jar is actually a bit darker than the actual jar, so I'm also going to turn down the brightness on those. Okay. Okay, so since these are planets, I do want to also make a glow around them. So I'm going to duplicate the planet layer again, and now it says planet copy. I'm going to label this glow. Again, I'm going to merge all the layers together. And then I'll turn the brightness up first, so their glow is a little brighter than the actual planet color. I'm going to go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur again. Okay. It looks a little out of place if I go too high up. So I think I'm going to stay around a 10.
Sort of almost just give them that atmospheric quality, right?
And then that gives it a subtle glow. Doesn't do much, but it's there.
You would also be able to do kind of a similar effect. You could actually use like a layer style on each one and add like an outer glow and choose the colors there. But I like that. I like this method because each of the planets has a different color. So rather than going and selecting, you know, the right color for the outer glow of individual planets, you just use the planets themselves and just kind of expand them and soften them.
I want to go back to the planet folder, the actual planets, and I'm going to adjust each of the individual shadowing on the planets because, like Venus over here, it's a little flat and I want it to be a little more round. It's going to brightness and contrast and create a bunch of different layer masks. So I can kind of hover around the planet and add shadowing where I want to.
So again, you've added a brightness and contrast adjustment layer, knocked down the brightness, and then you've hidden that adjustment completely. So when you use the brush, you're saying which areas you want to reveal.
Yeah, so just by adding that adjustment, it really brings that 3D element into Venus right there. And I'm going to do the same for Uranus.
It's helping to add some depth to each of these planets, give them a sense of roundness, and also give them shadows as if, you know, if there were planets kind of stacked on each other, then Venus would add a shadow to the surface of Uranus, Neptune, whichever one that is. What did we say?
That one is Uranus and that one's Neptune.
Nice.
I think. We might want to add Pluto into here too.
Oh yeah. That's
It's
not
not a
even a
planet
debate
anymore.
anymore. Yeah. But there are still some out there, I imagine.
It was at the time.
When I was learning, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had 9
It's been
planets.
a while. And then Saturn needs to be a little more darker. The rest of these planets out here need to be a little darker. So I'm going to scroll this up so it's not right on your head.
Right. Now I'm blocking everything I have to hide.
And then same thing. I think I'm going to use the burn tool on the bottom of this one actually, because I want Saturn to be a little darker.
Yeah, the burn tool is nice. It can be a destructive edit, so you be careful with that, but it can be nice because it'll actually target the darker areas of that layer. So rather than applying just like, darkening all across the board, it'll actually just help really define that bottom edge because there's already some darkness down there. I think there's some ideas that maybe like the color of, well, obviously at sunset there's a lot of like warm red and pink tones, and especially in the sand, and wondering if those would actually kind of like reflect up on the bottom of the planets and adjust the color there. And we may be able to get to that. But of course we've done so much work in such a short time already, and it's looking fantastic.
And I think Neptune is the last one that I need to adjust. Okay. Now I think I want to adjust the overall colors a little bit because it is a little too blue in comparison to the middle. And I kind of want more of a purple tone for this. Oh, that is not it. Okay. Okay. So what I just did there was I tested the cyan and the blue slider, but when I did that, there was a clear line in the middle. So I'm going to just adjust the overall hue and then mask out the sky and the bottom to adjust those colors because I don't want that clear-cut line.
Right.
So right now I have all the blue selected in this mask, and I'm just going to turn down the saturation a little bit because it is too bright for my liking right now.
And it's just the blues, or are you working on the master
Just the blues.
channel right now?
The master channel.
Oh, I
for
see,
just the
because
blues.
you masked out to just be the sky. Gotcha.
I'm also going to crop the image a little bit because the little blue section at the bottom is a little distracting from the planets. I'm going to crop this in because the sky is a little big.
It's always nice to get that rule of thirds just perfect.
Oh, what did I do? Interesting.
Yeah, it looks fine now. I wonder if that was just a little
I
bit of
think
a
it glitched a
glitch.
little bit. Okay.
Yep, Richard, I think that would be a good technique too. Blurring and then using a screen blending mode would kind of do a similar thing. It would knock out the dark values, leaving only those highlights. Lots of really amazing ways to get some awesome results.
I'm going to do some gamma correction. I love using gamma correction because if your picture looks a little faded, just adding that makes everything look better.
Yeah, can you flip that on and off to see the result?
Yeah. It really adds, it's not a vignette effect, but it adds contrast but better.
Nice.
Yeah. And I really like using that. And again, I'm going to adjust the overall hue and saturation. And I still don't like that green part at the top. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to fix that. By adding some more
Adds
blues.
a little blue, yeah. We're about 19 minutes away from doing portfolio reviews, which I don't know, time is just flying today, I think. But if you'd like to get if you'd like to be featured your portfolio, please just submit it via the portfolio review tab. We can only select 2 every day, so you might be one of our lucky winners. And we'll spend about 7 minutes or so on each one. It's a great way to get your work seen by a lot of people and get a little bit of constructive feedback. So submit that in the next 20 minutes and we can take a look at your work.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the planets, and I noticed that outside of the jar it's a little dark and the inside is too bright. So I'm going to adjust the overall brightness and contrast on all the planets. So I made a layer mask there and I inverted it, and I'm just going to brighten up the outside. And I'm going to make another brightness and contrast layer and then invert it again. And then, oh, this should be darker. Yeah. Okay. So I have a darker layer for the planets on the inside and a brighter layer for the planets on the outside. I'm also going to brighten up Mars because it's a little dark right there for my liking.
Oh yeah, it kind of recedes into the shadows.
I also want to use the dodge tool on Jupiter a little bit because the inside kind of looks like caramel right now.
And we all know it's much more of a milk chocolate.
Yes. For the overall planets, I noticed that the blues are a little harsh as well in comparison to the sky. So I'm going to turn down the blues and darken it a little bit. Actually, I'm going to brighten it.
So a little bit of desaturation and a little bit of lightness helps kind of like even it out. Definitely. And you're swinging it a little bit towards the greens too.
Just because the sky is on the greener side. Okay. I think for my overall adjustments, I also want to brighten up the bottom part of the jar because even though it is a shadow, it is a little too dark compared to the background. A little curves adjustment.
And no curves adjustment.
No.
That's the beauty of working in Photoshop. So much of it is just sort of experimentation, trying things, and you know when it works, and sometimes you know when it doesn't work.
For Venus over here, there's also a little bit of a black line, so I'm going to try to get rid of that with the eraser tool.
And for those of you asking how you can get your portfolio submitted or featured for today's portfolio review, there is a tab to the right of the chat tab called Portfolio Review, and it's got a link for you to submit your portfolio. But a reminder, it needs to be a Behance portfolio. It needs to be reasonably full, so if you only have 1 or 2 projects, we might not be able to take a look at that. And then finally, it really helps if your portfolio is relevant to today's stream. So if you're working in Photoshop, if your portfolio is full of compositing, or digital photography with some Photoshop editing, that also increases your chances of maybe being one of the portfolios we review today, just because we've got a resident expert here for creative compositing. So what's next for this image? How are you feeling about it?
I feel good about the planets right now, but I'm just going to brighten up the jar a little bit. Or I'm going to fix up the jar, because when I did the opacity, it did work, but now the edge of the jar, where we had the dark edges, it's a little dark down here. So I think I'm going to try to use dodge and burn, but if that doesn't work, I'm going to add a brightness and contrast layer. Yeah, I think I'll do brightness and contrast.
Yeah.
Actually, that looks good.
Yes, Keita and Vitaly, please keep adding work to your Behance. And when you're ready to show it off, join a stream and get it submitted for portfolios on a Thursday. And a reminder too that a good way to add some work to your portfolio is to participate in the daily challenges that happen every week on Adobe Live. There's all manner of challenges. A lot of them have to do with Photoshop. There's photography challenges and design challenges and Adobe XD challenges too. So it's a really good way to get some experience, and you can even put those projects up on your Behance.
Okay. I think I'm good for now.
Yeah?
Does chat have any suggestions?
Yeah, let's hear some suggestions from chat for this image. Maybe things that you think could be added, or further adjustments maybe that need to be made.
No one reminded me to save.
No one reminded me to save. I was thinking about it, but always a good idea to save your work. Okay, let's see. I'm sure we'll get a couple of suggestions coming in here. All right, good to know that Keita found his passion for composites from Adobe. Stars, that's a good idea.
Like stars in the sky?
What do you think?
It's a little blurred.
Do you think potentially like stars adding kind of a shimmer effect, since you have kind of Christmas lights in there? Do you think adding some like bokeh or stars or something?
I think I have bokeh actually.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. A small ant going to the planet. You could probably just draw that in with the pencil tool, right? Or a moon. The moon would be really cute. Maybe even
I
sort
have
of like,
lots of moons.
yeah, floating above the earth.
Moon. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a lot of moons.
But Earth is so small, the moon will have to be
Yeah, just like,
tiny, tiny. Wait, does that mean Saturn has to have a bunch of moons?
right. It needs to have like,
12.
is it 12?
I don't know.
I thought it was like, yeah,
16, 12.
11 or 12. I think you might be right. I'm gonna Google it. Unless somebody in chat can tell us how many moons Jupiter has without Googling it. Oh, we were way off. It's got
30.
53 moons.
I think it was Saturn that had 12 then.
Maybe.
One of the planets have 12. I'm not sure which one.
Jupiter has 53 moons, and those are the only the moons that have names. There's actually 26 more that are awaiting official names. Europa, Ganymede, Io, Callisto, Amalthea, Adreste, Thebe,
Oh my gosh.
Metis. There's so many. So if you have ideas for what the other 26 names of Jupiter's moons should be, go ahead and put your submission for your name and we'll send it to NASA for consideration. All right, let's see how many moons Saturn has. Somebody thought a UFO would be a good idea. Could be fun, funny. Everybody always wants to add something funny to the composite. Saturn has 62 moons.
Wow.
These are like way more than I thought. I wonder if they I wonder if they sort of keep discovering more.
Okay. I also noticed that the bottom of the planet should be cut off a little bit if it's on water. So I'm just gonna go back and erase a little bit of the bottom of each one.
Well, yeah, that'll help it kind of like look like it's sitting just nestled in those bubbles and on the sand. So far, we've gotten no ideas for new moon names. I'm a little disappointed. Val, if you're in chat, I know you've got a good name waiting, I'm sure, for one of Jupiter's moons. All right, first moon name, what do you think it is? It's definitely Adobe. It kind of sounds like a good moon name. Seems to fit.
Okay, I think I'm done with the image.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Looks pretty decent.
Yeah. And so this was an image that you've actually
Yeah.
done before.
Yeah, it's changed up a little bit now.
Yeah, the order of the planets is a little different. And you had a fun name for this, right? I see.
No. Not.
Do you have a name for this one now?
I don't actually.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody will have to submit a name.
Okay. How much time do we have?
We have 6.5 minutes.
And what about after portfolio reviews?
Maybe like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
We can try to do a quick composite.
nice. What are we gonna do?
We can make more hot air balloon photos.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I really like this one in your portfolio. That'd be a lot of fun. And Val, yes, we're asking for made-up names. Jupiter currently has 26 moons that are not named. So we'd like suggestions for which, what you would name any of those moons. Moon Solo, Moonwalker. All right, people like Star Wars here. Sienna, that's a good name. Good color too. All right.
Okay. So this is a very simple composite. Like my images range between 20 layers and 2 layers.
Right.
So this is one of the ones that is just 2 layers, and this is because the perspective fits in so well. So I'm just gonna be cropping out, masking out this hot air balloon right now because the colors between the hot air balloon and the sky are a little similar. They're not the same color, but they're around the same
Yeah, it's a
shade.
Tonal
Yeah.
value kind of, right?
But I can try to...
Have you ever used the select subject feature?
I have not, I don't think.
You should try that. It's new. It's in the same menu you just pulled up, and it's one of Adobe's newest features. So I don't actually know the science behind this, but sort of, oh, that was an awesome selection. It sort of looks, I imagine, at a combination of focus level and color, and it'll sort of in one click, try and go for the best selection. It really works if you have got like a really well-defined, human or something. It'll get you 90% of the way.
There's also a trick for this. If you just turn on the contrast, up the contrast, and then you go to your image, it's easier to find the edge. And you can go from there.
Nice.
Yeah. So now I'm just going to touch up that mask.
Empress Palpatine. I just watched Star Wars last night. I'm pretty sure everybody in the whole world has seen it, so I don't know that I can give any spoilers, but we're not fans of Palpatine.
I disabled the layer mask so I can go back in and find that edge.
Keita is asking, you use Adobe Creative Cloud, and have you filled your storage? I imagine you're using Creative Cloud to get your apps, but do you actually store anything on that, or do you use like Dropbox or?
Don't use anything to store. I have a hard drive, but I don't like working off of it because it just makes a really loud noise and it's really slow. So my previous laptop, I think I had 120 gigabytes, and every single time I was trying to make a photo, I only had 120 megabytes left. So every few seconds in this corner, it would pop up, storage full, and that's why I was deleting all my files. But this time I have 250 gigabytes, so it's a little better.
Yeah, I mean, it's true of compositing work, like you end up having so many high resolution photos and things like that, that it can really fill storage pretty quickly. And then you also have to have a certain amount of memory to run Photoshop, at optimal quality, so.
Okay, I just roughly got the outline of that balloon.
Very nice. We've got 2.5 minutes left, so you're gonna be like challenged like no other.
Okay, I'm gonna start going in with the brush tool now because I have the relative outline of the balloon.
All right, and as we're about 2 minutes away from portfolio reviews, just one final reminder that if you have your portfolio and you think it's a good match for us, if you're doing a lot of photo compositing work, creative compositing in Photoshop, please submit it for one last chance to be featured in the next 2 minutes. Have you ever been on a hot air balloon?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. If you're in chat and you've been on a hot air balloon, say hi, raise your hand. I'm not really sure what to expect either. If it's like I don't know, kind of a bumpy ride or something.
I think you just float up, right?
You think it's like nice and calm?
It should be.
It should be. It definitely should be. Lindsay Palmer has been in a hot air balloon. Lindsay, can you tell us, how was it? Was it calm? Was it terrifying? Exhilarating? We'll never know till we try it.
Okay, so I have the balloon cut out now. I'm just going to place it further up so it's the proper angle in relation to the person on the ground. And now there's also a little bit of a white glow around the ropes. So I'm going to try to go to layer and matting to defringe the... Oh, why am I not able to? Oh, it's a mask. Okay.
It's on the mask.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be able to show this defringing, and then we'll go to portfolio reviews, and then maybe we can do a couple more edits after that.
Okay.
How's that sound?
I'm going to just apply the layer mask, and then layer, matting, defringe. And I usually go around a 5, so that just makes everything a little darker. And I can touch up the sides a little bit later.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not going to reveal this final image. We may just have to show that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to switch gears right now just for the next 15 or so minutes, and we're going to take a look at 2 portfolios that they've been submitted. And as a reminder to everybody, we're going to be taking a look at these portfolios in total. So we'll go into a few projects, but we'll take a look at the overall impression that we get to. And this is a really good, I think, reminder for everybody of ways of kind of making your portfolio stand out. I know, for example, my work at Adobe, we're always on Behance looking for artists and designers and photographers that we can work with to help create something amazing. And so it's really, really important that your portfolio looks polished, looks focused, high quality, and stands out. So the first portfolio that we're going to look at today, Nishant, who I know was joining us. Oh, we got to do the space thing. I'm sorry. It's on theme, so we're going to go to space real quick, and then we'll do our portfolio reviews from there. Just try it. All right.
Oh.
The airlock is on. How did that work?
It was stuffy in there.
Okay. That was my bad. I forgot we had to do this from space. So now that we're in space, which is totally on theme with the projects that we've been working on, we will now take a look at these 2 portfolios. And first up is Nishant, who joined us in the chat. So congratulations for featuring your work. And looking at your portfolio, looks like a lot of color, a lot of pretty interesting portrait photography. One thing I like to start with is right at the beginning, just kind of taking the overall impression of this portfolio. It's always great to see a face. It's great to have links to additional resources, whether that's your Instagram or another portfolio, your website, some additional work that you've done. I think that's fantastic. And we will start by reading the biography. So Nishant is a photographer who makes photographs that he posts on various social media platforms to grab attention. That's awesome. Not very successful so far, though. I think you should maybe just remove that sentence and just like be really proud of your work. Because I don't know, this is a good audience who's looking at your work right now. Which of these projects stands out to you, Eunice?
The top right, because it's a composite, I think.
All right, let's take a look at it. All right, so two photos. Let's take a look at, do you still think it's a composite?
Not sure. It might be a very good, well-timed photo.
Yeah, that's sort of what I think. I wonder if maybe someone off camera like dropped some ice cubes in. And if that's the case, whether it's a composite or whether this was taken in camera, it's a nicely composed shot. I mean, just capturing this moment in time, you deserve some respect for that. And I think what's really interesting is the sort of a couple of the textures that we get. There's the cloth and materials themselves, and then you have the water droplets and splashes and everything, and then the smoke. And they're kind of playing in an interesting way with each other, which is not an easy thing to edit when you've got these soft smoke-like trails and harder edge kind of water capturing that. What do you think about colors and lighting?
First, I really like the focus because I don't know a lot about photography, but I know like the aperture and the ISO settings must have been really hard to get to exactly capture the water splash and also the smoke in the background. For the colors, I like the contrast. Personally, I like to have my colors more uniform and together, but nicely contrasted image. As long as it goes with your theme, it can be really nice as well. I like the brightness on the left side, the right side completely, because it brings out all the details on the table. But the right side, there is a giant black chunk in the top left, and I'm not sure if there's any detail there, but I would have preferred to crop it in a little more and center the glass, because it is a little off-center to the right at the moment.
Yeah, just a touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, overall, it can be hard, especially with a photo like this where you're really trying to capture a very, very thin moment in time. It can be hard to adjust the in-camera settings to account for everything. But one thing that would be nice to see here is a little bit of detail brought back in these highlights. So the edge of the glass and on some of the ice cubes, that highlight is really blown out and you lose some detail.
And the hand as well.
Right, and also in the hand, exactly. So depending on whether this was a raw photo or if this is sort of how it came out of the camera as a JPEG, what you could do is you could sort of lower the exposure so that area, that very bright area, has some of that detail that you need. And then you can bring up the shadows of everything else. So just make sure you don't lose the detail in your shadows and don't lose the detail in your highlights. That would be my only feedback for this. And then this is a very different photo, a different tonal range and saturation range. So it's kind of interesting to me that they're together in the same project. They're the only two photos here. My big question as I'm looking at the portfolio is wanting to understand the relationship between the two photos. It can be important to make sure that they feel cohesive as a set or they're different for a very specific reason.
I like the homey feel of this one though, because you can kind of see the vignette effect around. Not sure if it was shot that way or if it was edited that way, but you definitely see a dark oval surrounding the mug. I like the tonal balance on this one because nothing is overexposed or oversaturated.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a lot of the detail in the brighter parts of your photo is still there. And actually the shadow is used to good effect here. I imagine that there's not much detail. Because the blacks are kind of flat, it draws your eye forward, so you focus more on the cup and the biscuits that are in focus. So really nice edit. I think here. Let's go ahead and take a look at another project, something that appeals to you, Eunice.
Let's go with the light one, with the bouquet.
Okay. Fairy lights.
Yeah.
Very cool. Looks like a fun kind of day or night of shooting that you had with your friend here.
I like the bigger bouquet on the right because it gives variance.
Yeah, this is nice, and I'm kind of curious. A lot of this looks like it was achieved in camera with the right depth of field. You can sort of blur out the lights in the background, and then as you get closer. These, I wonder, these bigger ones, if they've been added later. Yeah. And regardless of whether they were added later or whether they were naturally there, they're done really well.
They were natural because there are some of the bigger ones behind the small blue one right there. Yeah. There is definitely some brightening going on in the front because you can't really focus on the background and the foreground light, and there's not much light being shone on the girl in the foreground. So I feel like it was definitely brightened up, but not too much.
It almost looks like, and I'm judging this based on how much light is here around the face and the neck, that maybe kind of inside this book, the lights were kept as a light source. Yeah. And you can see the reflection
in the glasses. But it's not bright enough to brighten up the entire face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are nice atmospheric shots. Like, definitely you're going for this sort of surreal, dreamlike mood, and the colors are really they're nicely chosen for this mood, right? Like purples and blues in the background, and then the subject is standing out, kind of richer, warmer tones, and that contrast is really helping create that nice mood. Again, with the kind of smoke, like that's a really nice lighting capture. In fact, the lighting in these scenes is really well considered, right? To backlight your subject like this so that the smoke is captured and you can see the sort of halo effect defining the face and the neck. So that must have been really fun.
Yeah.
I want to take a look at this first project too, because it stands sort of in contrast to the others. They were so colorful,
Oh, yeah.
and this has got such a subdued, natural tone. It's a very, very beautiful portrait, but it reminds me of a still life image, you know. It almost kind of reminds me of old master paintings. I mean, the portraits that were painted hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, I really like this concept too, having the earring going through the curtain. It really makes it stand out. It's kind of like when you take a camera and you're trying to blur your background, it's like doing that, but without any editing.
Yeah.
Because the background is so subdued, but you can still see the subject.
Yeah, these are really, really beautiful. I would encourage you to continue maybe working with this concept further and adding more to this series, because I think it represents a really nice kind of refined, subtle approach. And that can be hard to find, but I think you've done it really well here. So that is Nishant Sharma's portfolio. So everybody make sure to go ahead and give him a follow and appreciate some of his work. And next, we're going to go to our second portfolio, Marco, who is an art director in Brazil, and a very different approach, a much more graphic design and brand-oriented approach. Pretty straightforward profile. There's a good enough selection of work. You know, this is a nice array of projects. I would suggest that, you know, as an art director, maybe I'm not sure if you're looking for work or if you're hoping that people will sort of hire you or reach out to you, it's always a good idea to put your email or other ways of contacting you on your Behance. But good job for the Facebook and the Instagram. So let's dive into one of these projects. What's appealing to you?
I like the couch one.
Cool.
Oh,
Academic work, I
maybe.
believe, schoolwork.
Yeah.
Some of these dogs don't have spots and the others do, so I'm kind of curious about that one. All right, so it kind of looks like this is a portfolio of brand work, brand advertisements. Let's go ahead and start with this first one because this was the thumbnail. This is, you know, a really interesting concept. I've, you know, seen kind of work like this where letters are replaced with objects and you can kind of make an association. It definitely stands out. Strong use of color is always appealing.
I like the placement of the text, but you can kind of see the top of the top right and the bottom left are separated by a line with two different shades of yellow, and that line kind of goes through the couch when it should be kind of the background of the couch. So I would have just masked out the difference in color so it looks like the couch is in the foreground, because right now it looks like the line is cutting through the object.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. I almost wonder if this is supposed to look like a highlight and a shadow on the glass. You know, this is sort of set inside a frame, but I totally agree that it's hard to tell whether that's part of the image or part of how you are framing the work, in a sense. But I do like the typeface. This line of text right here, the sub headline, is almost the exact same length as the couch, and I'm sure this was probably explored, but kind of setting it just directly under the couch might be an interesting solution there too. You want to pick the next one to take a look at? This is quite nice.
Oh, I recognize that picture.
Which one?
Oh, the one inside. That's from Unsplash, so I've used that before.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah. This is a cool kind of, I don't know, really dynamic layout. It's a little hard to tell at this size how well it performs as if I'm trying to read it, but overall it's eye-catching and a nice use of primary colors with red, yellow, and blue.
I like the contrast on the right because the red and the white and the blue really stand out. But on the left, that shade of blue is a little too subdued to be on that shade of yellow. So I would have changed one of the colors to be brighter or darker just to make it really stand out.
Yeah, that's really great feedback. Always nice to see sort of stark white. Okay, what else should we jump into? I'm kind of curious what this picture project might be. All right, this potentially visual identity I might be able to translate there. A little bit hard to tell for me whether, you know, sort of what your involvement here, and maybe it's written in here, so apologies if that's true, but I think, you know, without being able to read it, I can see a photograph, and so potentially this is someone you know, or an image of a performance or something that you were a part of, and it looks like we could probably watch a video to figure that out. But then we're looking at this right here, which kind of looks like a brand identity to me, like a old analog VHS logo, which I think is really cool, and I imagine this graphic language could be extended further. I think this touch right here is really fun too. Yeah. Again, I'm not sure what it says, but it's nice that that visual language continues throughout. But yeah, this is fun. It's, I don't know, I always like glitchy things. It's kind of fun.
It's a nice color balance because usually when you have no signal, I think it's based off of those. When you have a TV screen that says no signal, it has the various colors, but in this one it's kind of pastel instead of the bright.
Oh, right. Yeah, super red, blue, and green. Let's take a look at this most recent one. All right, so these look like a series of printed, I guess, advertisements, maybe some marketing.
I like the beer bottle.
Yeah. It'd be really great, I think, because I'm clicking to like zoom in and see some of these bigger. It would be really great. I understand the reasoning for making all of this one image, but it can be really, really helpful if each of these images is a separate one that you can pull up full size, because it is really a bit hard to see some of the detail, and I'm sure you spend a ton of time working on this project, so it'd be really, really great to be able to kind of zoom in and savor all of that detail. But yeah, these are really fun concepts. A lot of color. This is an interesting Photoshop composite with some, looks like illustrative flowers, some product shots, and then of course some vector graphic design on top of it.
I like the color balance. The label on the beer is really matches with the poster. I would have just, I don't know how you would do this, but somehow make it contrast more, because the label matches so well that it just kind of blends into the background.
Yeah, you could probably, I mean, if that background was more in a blue space, then all the really rich warm colors in the flowers and in the red label and in the yellow label would stand out a little bit more clearly from a distance. And certainly if this is brand work, you know, there's brand colors that you might have to be working with. And I think these are really pleasing, you know. They're pretty simple, minimal executions, but I'm imagining they all go together, and in general you have kind of the right color space between everything with this sort of warm, neutral tone. And that can be hard to do, especially if the source imagery comes from different locations, but
I would have liked to see on the right one if the text could go behind the laptop like you did with the one in the middle with the guy in the beard.
Right.
Because the text is going behind his ear. And that would have been nice to see with the laptop. So there's kind of a continuity between all three posters.
Yeah, I agree. It's when that corner of the gold box touches just the edge of the laptop, sometimes that can be a moment of tension, is sometimes what it's referred to. So you either kind of commit a little bit further in and put the text behind it, or just give them a little bit of spacing so that it breathes a little bit better. And I would really love to see this logo down here. It's hard to see at this distance, but it looks like kind of a nice contemporary roundel logo. So that would be fun to see. And then I think we will just go one more. Do you want to do cookie sugar box?
Yeah.
I know we've just got about a minute left. Cool. So it looks like designing maybe not the brand language, but the packaging for this brand, and certainly stands out.
Very minimal.
Yeah. I really like. I have a couple thoughts about this. I really like that one side of the box is just a whole field of color, and the logo right in the middle. It's sort of just saying like, here we are. It's really, really confident. And then using the product itself, these cookies, as a pattern, I think is also really fun. It's kind of a shame that they're on the side of the box, because maybe if this was in a store or something, you would only see the front of the box. So maybe that element, those patterns, could come out even in your Behance project, right? Like maybe those cookies are used as a pattern to help break the flow of this Behance project. It can be kind of a fun way to extend this brand language.
Yeah. It looks really different from the other boxes you see at the store, so it definitely stands out. But again, to see the product, you either see the product or the name, so you don't really want to be in a position where you have to choose between how you're arranging them on a shelf.
Right. Yeah, the only other thing I would say about this one is this gradient from the lighter orange down to the dark one. It does seem like it's part of this image, but I think in the larger Behance project, it sort of seems like it's a little bit out of place. So maybe this gradient goes fully edge to edge to help you create clear-cut sections. But otherwise, a really confident, I think, approach to color and minimal design. So thank you, Marco, thank you, Nishant, and thank you everybody who submitted your portfolio for consideration. We can only get to 2 every day, but that doesn't mean you should stop trying. We're always streaming live week after week, so keep submitting. Let's go ahead and flip back. We maybe have 2 minutes and take a look at this project. And it's up to you. Do you want to add a few more things, or do you want to kind of talk about what you would do to this?
I'm basically done because I layered both the items onto this image, and now it's just a lot of color correction. So I just bring the brightness down on this one, and of course I would touch up the little corners so nothing is too bright, and I would also do a lot of more color correction to brighten up the person in the basket and the fire. But overall, if I just adjust the tones on this image, and if I just draw a line from the person's hand to the balloon, that is basically my image. It's just a lot of color correction on the balloon and the person, and just getting the overall tone correct is what takes a long time. Yeah, and it definitely takes some refinement. Let's go ahead and switch back to my screen to just show that you've actually done, this is an image that you've actually worked on before. And it's a really, really fantastic piece. I know when I first looked at your portfolio, it was one of the ones that stood out to me. So this is a good chance to encourage everybody to go ahead and follow Eunice on Instagram at @editmyreality, because there's a ton of great work I'm sure you're making. How often are you posting? I used to do every week, but then school started and I did every I tried to do every month, but then there was a time when I couldn't create anything. But now I think I'm going to try to do every week again. So
Nice.
hopefully I can come up with something.
Yeah, well, I know that you're doing a ton of work, and school is also a big thing, but it was fantastic having you on this week.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you'll be back. I know it was great to see how you work and how you create your images. So until next time, we are going to sign off today. Be sure to check with us again next week for another full week of streaming on Adobe Live. But for now, everybody take care and keep making cool things in Photoshop. And we'll see you again.